Good evening, everybody. I'm Stesha Brandon, the Literature and Humanities Program Manager at the Seattle Public Library. As we begin tonight, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Indigenous land. Here in Seattle, we are on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Duwamish people. We honor their elders, past and present, and thank them for their stewardship of this land. Welcome to the second in the 5-part series, Radical Self-Acceptance as Activism, curated by Olaya Land and presented in partnership with Third Place Books. We're grateful to our author series sponsors, the Gary and Connie Kunis Foundation, and the Seattle Times for generous support of library programs. Thank you as well to the Seattle Public Library Foundation. Private gifts to the foundation from thousands of donors help the library provide free programs and services that touch the lives of everyone in our community. I have a couple quick announcements before we get started. You can find the books by Dr. Lindsay Kite at our partner bookseller, Third Place Books. Third Place is open for browsing or delivery, and their website is thirdplacebooks.com. And we will pop a link to their website in the chat in just a minute with a direct link so that you can buy More Than a Body if you're interested. So we'll do that in just a few minutes. And I wanted to let folks know we have closed captioning for this event. You can access the closed captioning by clicking on the icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. After Olaya and Lindsay are done chatting, we'll have time for questions from you. You can ask your questions at any time during the program by writing them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And we ask that you put them in the Q&A box so that the questions go in the Q&A box, and then that will keep the chat for the fun, engagement, and letting folks, post links and things like that. And then finally, after the program, we're interested in hearing from you. I'll post a link to a program survey in the chat, and I would love it if you took a minute after the event to fill it out. It's an opportunity for you to share what you think about the program and to make suggestions for other programs, and I really do read every survey, so I would appreciate it if you took a minute after the program to fill that out. We'd love to hear what you think. Now I'm delighted to introduce tonight's speakers. Olaya Land is the founder and editor of Lioness, an online journal and community promoting connection, confidence, sisterhood, and self-love. She's the host of the Lioness podcast as well. Olaya also leads retreats and workshops all over the world that help people feel empowered and connect to their creativity. And I've been a big fan of Olaya's work for years now and was so thrilled when she agreed to be the guest curator for this series, and she came up with this brilliant concept of radical self-acceptance as activism. And for tonight, Olaya is going to speak with Dr. Lindsay Kite. Dr. Kite is identical twin sisters with Dr. Lexi Kite, and both received PhDs from the University of Utah. Their academic research on media studies and body image inspired them to establish the nonprofit Beauty Redefined in 2009, while concluding their co-written master's thesis and beginning their doctoral research to help a greater number of females recognize and reject harmful messages about their bodies, worth, and potential, and to redefine the meaning and value of beauty in their lives. Since then, Lexi and Lindsay have become leading experts in body image resilience and media literacy. Authors of numerous studies and books have cited their original research, and Lexi and Lindsay have been featured in a variety of national media outlets. Today, they continue to build on their academic work and the passion it stoked for helping girls and women through Beauty Redefined's online body image resilience program and course facilitator training, blogging, social media activism, and regular speaking engagements for thousands of people of all ages, from universities and high schools to church congregations and community organizations. So please help me welcome Olaya Land and Dr. Lindsay Kite, and let's welcome them in the chat.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Lindsay. Thank you, Stasha, for the introduction. Lindsay, I am so excited to speak with you tonight. So welcome.
I'm so happy to speak with you. Thank you so much for having me on this.
Yeah, I found you. I discovered you through Instagram. I always have this love-hate relationship with Instagram, but there are like really fantastic things on there. And I discovered you kind of on my own journey of like body acceptance and re-examining my relationship with my body. And then I found your book and I love the work that you do. I interviewed your twin sister on the Lioness podcast. So I'm just thrilled to be continuing this conversation tonight.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thank you so much.
And before we get into our conversation, I would just like to speak briefly about the talk series for people who don't know much about it. So I was thrilled when the Seattle Public Library reached out to me and asked me to be a guest curator. And I was even more thrilled when they gave me carte blanche to kind of create a series around whatever topic I wanted to talk about. And I chose radical self-acceptance. Initially, the title of this was Radical Self-Acceptance for the Post-Pandemic Era. That was in May when I was feeling very optimistic and had just gotten vaccinated. And so we're not yet in the post-pandemic era. So I shifted it to radical self-acceptance as activism for several reasons. One is that I think the last 18 months have really shown us that we have a lot of work to do in the sphere of working for social justice and equality. I think that's been made like patently evident. I also think the pandemic has really showed us in a very tangible way how fleeting and precious life is. And then I also think this shift in work culture and home life culture and parenting and homeschooling has really led people to unprecedented amounts of burnout. I'm just seeing all around me tons and tons of burnout. So my idea for this talk series was really to talk about like what can radical self-acceptance look like and how that can be a tool for working towards this greater social justice and equity in a sustainable way. Because I really felt last year people were very activated. I mean, I'm so thrilled that people have been active in a way I have never seen in my entire life. But then I also felt like a wave of burnout as people were going through that. And then the last thing is how we can use how everyone can use radical self-acceptance as a tool for combating burnout, showing up more fully for themselves, their families, their friends, and their communities. So that is kind of the concept behind this talk series. And I am thrilled to be talking with you tonight about your book, about your work. So let's get into it. I always like to start by hearing about people's stories, because when people are doing cool stuff, like there's inevitably a good story about how they got to that place. So you write, oh, and for anybody who hasn't seen the book, this is the book, More Than a Body. It's fantastic. Changed my life. Highly, highly recommend. And in the book, you talk about, in the introduction to the book, you talk about a little bit about your story, about how you came to start Beauty Redefined and write this book, both from growing up as being a girl in the 90s with those like really oppressive beauty standards. But also one thing that's really fascinating to me is you write about the experience of being a twin and having this like almost like a mirror with you everywhere you go, and how that impacted your self-image and your sense of self. Could you talk a little bit about that and your story and how you started Beauty Redefined and wrote this book?
Yeah, definitely. That you're right, that if somebody is doing something interesting and putting a lot of their heart and soul into it, it's probably from a pretty personal place. They probably have a story behind that. And I love hearing people's stories about what they're interested in. Yeah, for me, it honestly started from a lot of shame, a lot of pain. You can imagine if you really dig into body image work, you've probably come from a place of understanding that on your own personal level. That was definitely true for me and for Lexi. But growing up as identical twins, you can imagine how much comparison we got.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can imagine how, and still to this day, when people meet us side by side and they've never, seen us or met us before, and they find out we're twins, they immediately will look back and forth. They'll scan your body up and down, and then they will audibly pick out which things they think are different. So it definitely happened more when we were really little, but we were just constantly being compared and contrasted. And it led to this extreme awareness of how we appeared at all times. And not only just how we appeared, like a level of self-consciousness that a lot of girls develop from a young age, but also being able to look at each other's bodies and faces. I looked at her as if she was my own reflection, like a mirror, as you said. I would watch her. She's turned around. She's wearing her swimsuit. We were competitive swimmers from a really young age. And I remember looking at her and really consciously thinking, oh, so that's what I look like when I'm wearing that from behind, or when I'm leaning over, or when I'm not aware of how I look.
Oh, well, yeah, that's like a whole nother level. I mean, it's already like mirror, shop windows and mirrors, like as a teenage girl, it's already like challenging, but this is like you have your own personal like 360-degree mirror everywhere you go.
Exactly. It's the comparison thing, but then it's also the, oh, okay, this is an angle on me that I wasn't even aware of. And so Lexi and I, we start out the book like that, talking about the comparison and the competition that was between us, and the obsession really with how we look and losing weight and all of that. But we do that because I think there's a really interesting parallel to be drawn between what identical twins go through and what any normal person goes through as they start to grow up and live in this objectifying culture that reminds you your body is the most important thing, and that looking a certain way is going to be your key to health and happiness and success and confidence and everything else. And then, we internalize that same objectified view of ourselves. It's self-objectification. We think of our bodies as objects or projects for fixing, for viewing, for judging, and we turn that lens against ourselves. And so like you kind of become your own identical twin. You are split from yourself, imagining yourself from the outside, monitoring yourself all the time as you go throughout your day. And so if you think about, turning against yourself, kind of being your own critical, judgmental, identical twin, that's kind of a good description for what self-objectification is. And that showed up in our research like crazy.
Yeah, I want to get into that. I'm glad you brought that up because that was the next thing I was going to talk about, because it's such an important theme in your work. And it's a term that I'd never heard. I mean, and like the minute you hear that term, you understand what that means, right? But I'd never thought about it like so directly. So I'd love it if you could talk a little bit about this phenomenon of self-objectification, what it is and what it stems from. But also in your book, you write a lot about how it like separates us from ourselves, this real like cleavage or this like splitting from your true self. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. Self-objectification, it happens primarily to girls and women in our culture, or female presenting people, because we're sold so many messages from the time we're born, really, about what makes a woman valuable. And that primarily comes from her appearance and her sexual appeal. And so we're taught in very direct, cohesive ways about what it looks like to be that, not just beautiful, perfect 10 woman, but what it looks like to be a normal, acceptable woman. Because all of the images of women that we saw looked one way. They were very uniform and standard. They're thin, they're young, they have curves in all the right places and none of the wrong ones. They are primarily white or with light skin tones, and often with really full, thick hair. You're never going to see cellulite, scars, veins, all the things that we grow up with thinking are so abnormal.
This so resonated with me. And you write somewhere about this in the book, somebody having the same experience. I remember being like maybe 14, 15, and I had, like reading fashion magazines because there was no internet at the time. That's how old I am. And
I remember those days.
And so I was like very into fashion magazines, and I had this wall. It was like an homage to this like body type. It was just exactly what you're describing, like thin, petite, like mostly white women. And yeah, that just really resonates with me.
Yeah, because that was what was perceived as normal.
Yeah.
That was like all the rest of us, which is pretty much every person who was exposed to those messages, felt embarrassed and abnormal of our perfectly normal spectrum of appearances. And so this creates not only shame, but a fixation on how we look, because we believe that looking right will lead to all of the good things in life that we want. And what happens in an objectifying culture is, like I said, self-objectification. It's this split that happens where, so imagine yourself, this is how we start out the book as well. You're on a beach when you're a little kid. Try to think back to the days before your self-consciousness, before you had any fear or real awareness of how people were looking at you, how you appeared to other people. And so you can imagine as a little kid being hunched over in the backyard, wearing a swimsuit or just your underwear, or being at the beach playing in the sand and not having any concerns about your stomach scrunching up and you've got thick sunscreen slathered all over your face. Who cares? You're just playing, you're enjoying the sun, the water, the sand. And as we grow older and as we are immersed further in what we call the waters of objectification, this perfectly normal way of viewing our bodies, we get separated from that whole embodied self on the beach, and we drift out into the waters of objectification. We're invited there by the magazines that we saw on the newsstands when we were little. I was just like you, just worshiping these teen magazines, looking at all the girls, they all looked the same way. And therefore I knew that I was wrong and would have to look that way if I was going to be happy or ever have a boyfriend or anything else I really wanted as a teenager. And that is this split that keeps you separated from yourself. You watch yourself living your life. You imagine how you appear. You try to envision yourself through other people's eyes. Even as you scroll through your own social media timeline or your own feed, you look how someone else might look at you. Like maybe a new person that you're romantically interested in follows you, and you do that thing where you're like, well, let me just check and see what's he going to be seeing.
Yeah.
And you scroll through and you put yourself in the mind of someone else. You are self-objectifying. We are imagining our bodies as objects, not as instruments for our use. And so this self-objectification is really the root of the body image problem in our culture. And a lot of people are missing that. They're thinking that girls and women just don't feel beautiful. And if they felt beautiful, they'd be fine. But there are a lot of girls and women that do feel beautiful and do get a lot of attention and validation for how they look. And yet they are still obsessed with their bodies. Still part of their mental and physical energy is being drained away all day long, trying to maintain that appearance, trying to keep up those levels of validation and attention. They live or die by whether they are beautiful enough or not. And in this culture, we're never going to be beautiful enough for long. It's fleeting because the standard is changing.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if you follow Taylor Gage, but
Yeah.
she does a lot of work around body image. And I heard her talk about this metaphor one time of building, like basing your self-worth on your appearance is like building your house in the sand. It's not, if it will be washed away, it's when, by age or injury or pregnancy or whatever comes along. And that just like really stuck with me. And that kind of resonates with what you're speaking about now. And I love in the book you write about this metaphor, and you mentioned it about like the sea of self-objectification. Like when you're a kid, like you're just at the beach and like you're getting your toes wet a little bit, you hear your mom talking about her body, or you see this television character, or all the cartoon characters are drawn like very curvaceously and sexily. So there's like little, and then you wade out a little further, and before you know it, you're like way off the shore. Like,
and everyone else is too.
Yes, like just
people in your life, they're on diets, they're worried about their appearance, they're talking about your appearance. You're getting that constant reminder that your body is crucial and that it doesn't look quite right, but with all these tools and solutions, then it can, and then you'll be happy and accepted. And it's a lifelong vicious cycle that so many of us are on, and yet we don't get any ultimate satisfaction.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing about it, why it really is like the ocean, because it's like this water that we like now completely swim in. Like, so when you're not conscious of it, like there's like probably hundreds, I don't know if you, in your research, if you've come across any numbers about this, but like, I'm curious about like how many times a day there are like micro instances of self-objectification, or micro instances of just like, oh, I should look like this, or I look fat in these jeans, or suck your stomach in, or I'm eating, like, I'm sure it's hundreds every day for most people, right?
It's impossible to evaluate. It's impossible to put a number on because it's something that's so consistent. Most people don't even know it's happening. Yeah. It's just like we said, like you're swimming in these waters of objectification, where it's not like you're living in fear all the time. You're not aware that you're floating in this water. It's just normal. It's just how it is. And so we absorb it all, and we just think that's the nature of being a woman in this culture. And it's like, all right, well, at least we've got makeup. At least we've got all these different weight loss options and social media feeds to follow for all the best tips and tricks. But what we need to do is to get uncomfortable with the waters of objectification. We need to have a spotlight shine on our self-objectification so that we're even aware that it's happening. Like, it's not conscious thoughts usually. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a conscious thought that's like, oh, I can't believe I wore this today, because you see your reflection in the glass as you're walking up and then you're embarrassed. But a lot of times it's just simply the constant script running through your mind, where you're sitting in a classroom or a boardroom and you are adjusting your thighs so that they don't look like they're spreading out across this chair too far. And the person behind you isn't seeing that, you're hunched over in an unflattering way or whatever it is. It's just this constant mind-numbing normal way of thinking about our bodies, but we don't want it to be normal. We want that to be what's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I remember the first time that I read your book and then started like looking for it. I was like, oh shit, this is everywhere, like everywhere. I was like, I can't pass a mirror. I can't, and I feel like I have a good relationship with my body, and like I've done a lot of work to like really value it for what it can do. And I do feel like my body is like miraculous, and I'm grateful for all of it. And I just pass the window and I just give a quick little, like it's so, I have 46 years of like doing that. Like it's so pervasive.
It is. It feels natural.
Yeah. And one of the things that you write about self-objectification and this constant monitoring of our bodies, that really also, I think it's very important to call out, is how it saps so much of our confidence and our energy. And that is what's really compelling to me, is that as somebody who's really interested in empowering women to do big things, to like give themselves permission to go out there and create change. I mean, if we could put a number on the hours per day, per week, per month, per year we spend doing, like, I think in the book you call it beauty work. Like,
Yep.
I just imagine how much energy would we get back? How much time would we get back? How much energy would we get back? How much higher would our confidence be if we
Yeah.
weren't having these little micro dings to our confidence all day long?
Right.
And this is part
Yeah.
of personally, that I think this is like extremely important to consider. It's not just like nice, it's like necessary for
Oh, I
like,
think so too. Yeah. Well, it puts us at a disadvantage. Like, really, when you compare yourself to the men and boys in your life and the amount of time and money and energy they put into their appearance compared to what we do, like, there's no doubt at all that we are at a disadvantage financially and with our time and energy in so many different ways. And it goes hand in hand with that self-objectification, because we're kind of trying to build our confidence and to escape the shame by doing all of this beauty work in so many ways to, just feel better for the moment. And ultimately, it's just not a lasting solution at all. It just leads to more and more upkeep. We kind of raise the bar on ourselves to be able to feel like ourselves and to feel comfortable and normal. Then we've got to do this extra work and buy these extra things and maintain all of it. And
yeah.
it's a losing game.
Well, speaking of the bar, I feel like the beauty industry is constantly like inventing like new things, like
Oh my
things you
goodness.
couldn't even imagine, like, because they just have to keep like infinite growth, right? So like, let's invent some new thing for people to be concerned about. And another thing about that I think is really compelling is it also puts all of the sources of validation and approval outside of ourselves. And I think that carries over into other areas of your life if you're used to living that way. Like, I think it's harder for people who are highly self-objectifying to give themselves permission in other areas of their life because they're so conditioned to look for approval from the exterior.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and it starts showing up at really young ages too. When one of the like darkest parts of digging into this stuff with people is that you find out how early it started to really negatively affect them without them even really calling it that. They blamed themselves. They didn't blame the standards that they're inadvertently holding themselves to and then self-objectifying all day long. So you hear about girls who stop raising their hands in class because they don't want to be looked at. Their faces get red. They're not wearing the right outfit. You can imagine all the things you're self-conscious of in 6th grade. In 8th grade, you're going through puberty. You don't want to be seen. Like, we all can relate to that. So girls stop raising their hands in class. They stop going out for leadership opportunities. They stop playing sports or participating in PE. That has ripple effects that last the rest of your life.
I remember PE was so traumatic. I remember I still feel traumatized thinking about my junior high school PE class, like, because I felt like we had uniforms. I was like, these shorts are too short and this t-shirt's too tight, and like, are my fat rolls showing? And like, yeah.
Yes, can relate. Most of us can relate to that.
I haven't thought about that in a long time.
I know, that's why I say it's dark. Like, it brings up these things where you remember how much you loved playing volleyball or being in dance or whatever it is when you're young, like especially around, late elementary school, middle school time. And by the time you're 14, 15, 16 years old, girls are quitting these activities because they don't look right in the uniform, because they don't quite fit the body ideals. And that stuff lasts the rest of your life, because once you learn that it's easier to sit out or opt out of something, it's easier to hide your body and then try to fix it, then you still don't go up for career opportunities that you want to be involved in or that are really male dominated. And oftentimes for really valid reasons, because there is prejudice, there is bias, there is harassment. And we kind of accept it as normal, because if our bodies are the most important thing about us and we want to be appealing, then we just accept these things as okay and feel that they're deserved, instead of that they're a product of a really unhealthy, ridiculous environment.
Yes, and I think you touched on like a big, like, the way girls stop raising their hand and stop showing up and stop going for leadership positions is what makes this, in my mind, like part of why this radical self-acceptance is activism. Like, because that shit has to stop. Like,
it does.
we need girls feeling powerful. We need girls feeling like they can show up. We need girls like taking leadership roles. It's so important.
And when they see other girls who look like them or who don't fit the ideals or are breaking the mold in other ways, and they see other girls raising their hand or staying on the volleyball team or whatever, that is radical self-acceptance as activism. They are seeing activism in motion, even if it doesn't feel like that for the person doing it. She may just be living her life, but for someone else who's self-objectifying her way out of a whole thing that she wants to do, seeing someone else do it is like seeing activism in action that can be really inspiring.
Totally, especially for teenagers, because
Yeah,
yeah,
they need it
um,
more than anything. They don't want to feel abnormal and left out,
totally.
But it lasts all the way through adulthood. We need to see other people doing things that we're not sure we qualify to do. Because
Oh
they're
my
not
gosh,
woke.
yes. And there's a term that you have in your book that I just want to call out because I was like, oh, that is so it. You talk about normative discontent, which is this idea that most of us feel bad about our bodies most of the time.
Yeah.
And that it's become so normalized that we like this sense of discontent, like women just expect to feel like that's just part of the female experience is just, oh, I'm constantly fixing these things or something wrong with me. And just hearing a term for that really called out to me like how pervasive it is and how,
Yeah. How normative it is that we are uncomfortable in our bodies all the time. That
totally.
it just, we bond over those things, we bond over how, I feel fat, I feel ugly, look at me today, whatever. And our whole lives, you hear women saying things like that to each other. Listen in a dressing room while you're trying on clothes at TJ Maxx or whatever. You're
Yes.
going to hear other women saying terrible things about their bodies and other women kind of joining in or saying like, oh, whatever, you're skinny. Are you kidding me? Look at me. It's
Yes.
just a part of our culture that's so baked in. And that's why I say I don't want that stuff to be comfortable anymore. I want that to be the uncomfortable part. We shouldn't be forcing ourselves to fit into these molds that like are unachievable and take so much money and effort if we are even going to get anywhere close to them. And
Oh,
so,
yes. I want to come back.
yeah,
I want to talk about money because
yeah, okay.
that's a really important topic in your book. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Before we get to that, I would like to talk a little bit about, so in the book you talk about, so once we kind of understand what self-objectification is, you talk about many women having instances of body image disruption, which if, as I understand it, are like experiences that push us out of our body image comfort zone, like simply like aging, injury, pregnancy, or even just like trying a ton of diets and realizing that they don't work, or
Yeah. Or
um,
seeing a photo of yourself you don't like tagged
yeah.
on the internet,
Ooh,
or
that one
trying on clothes that
that
you
one for
haven't
me
worn in a while.
has been so triggering, like pictures
Yeah.
of me on the internet that I don't have control over.
I know
Yeah,
everyone hates that.
yes. And I like that you call out that these experiences are not necessarily bad, and in fact, actually are like can be part of the growth process. And you talk about kind of 3 paths that people take to cope. So the first one, I would love to talk about those a little bit more. So like say you have this experience, you're like, oh, somebody tags you on Facebook and you're like, oh my God, I look horrible in this picture or whatever it is. Or you've tried, for me, it was like, I tried well, I had, eating disorder for multiple decades, but then even after that, I tried every single diet under this, like every diet. And finally I was like, wait a second, this is not working. This doesn't work. This doesn't, I just had to, like 20 years of trying diets to be like, 30 years to be like, okay, this shit does not work. So we have this disruption. And then, so one path that we can go to is like sinking into shame. And then another path that people often take that I see really common is people trying to kind of what you were talking about a minute ago, like double down and fix the problem. So let's talk a little bit about those. Let's talk a little bit about shame because I think it's so important for this conversation.
Yeah. So these disruptions that we go through, they force us out of our normative discontent comfort zone. And in our comfort zone, so the imagery that I like to use is think of the waters of objectification, the sea of objectification we discussed. Your comfort zone is kind of a flimsy life raft. So you're floating out there, you're all right, you don't really know it any other way. And then a wave comes along. This is a wave of body image disruption that knocks you out of your life raft and you have to respond. So the very nature of this objectifying environment that we are in right now means that you will face disruptions to your body image. And they might be those little things like being tagged in a photo or video that you really hate of yourself, or it could be a huge thing like injury and illness, chronic illness, disability, things that change your relationship with your body in some really significant way. And when we're faced with those disruptions, we get knocked out and we have to respond. Like you said, we will always respond in one way or another. And one of the worst ways is sinking deeper into shame. We will do anything to cope with the shame, to numb ourselves, to distract ourselves. And when you're in this category, you're sinking deeper into shame. And so it doesn't help you, but it might numb you or distract you for a moment. So think like disordered eating. This is also self-harm. Cutting is a huge one that comes up, especially for young women. Alcohol abuse, substance use disorders of all types would fit into this category. Unhealthy sexual behavior definitely falls into this category. We hurt ourselves and numb ourselves in an attempt to deal with the shame that we feel. about our bodies or about anything else. And once again, it doesn't make us feel any better afterward, it just distracts us for a moment. The second path that people take is going to be familiar to probably everybody listening because we all do this. It's very natural. We learn to hide our bodies or fix our bodies. So think of this like in psychology, they would talk about it as you go through a disruption of some sort and you'd go into fight or flight.
Mhm.
So you're doing whatever it takes to get out of that situation that's making you uncomfortable. In the body image world, we call it hide and fix instead of fight or flight, because with hiding, you are opting out of events, activities, situations where you don't want to be seen. It could be social activities. It could be, like dating in general, pursuing relationships in general. It could be physical activities, even like going to the gym or workout classes or anything that like things you want to do, but you just don't do because you don't think you look quite right yet. Even leadership opportunities and campaigning for things, women avoid that. They don't want to be criticized and judged and looked at. And then on the other side of that is fixing. And sometimes we do both of these at the same time. I know for me, when I was facing body image disruptions for a long time in my teenage years, especially around swimming, being invited to go swimming was always a big disruption to my body image. And so I would respond to that disruption every time by hiding and fixing. I would hide by saying like, oh, I can't go today, but invite me next time, okay? And I would try to fix my body so I could qualify to go swimming next time by going and running on the treadmill for way too long and cutting out food groups for weeks on end and trying every crash diet in the world, which like you, I have done them all. And none of that, like even if I did lose a whole bunch of weight or change my wardrobe or my makeup or whatever, none of that brought any lasting relief. It is hiding and fixing. It keeps you in that uncomfortable, unsafe comfort zone. And it doesn't fix the problem at all. And yet we're all doing that. And it leaves us on this cycle of self-objectifying and getting uncomfortable and the shame comes up. We're disrupted. And then we go on a liquid crash diet or we get liposuction or we change our wardrobe or we just hide. And then we're back to the self-objectifying.
And it really is a cycle, at least in my experience, like
Yeah.
it's that endless like diet. Like I can't tell you how many diets I started after seeing an unflattering picture or some kind of disruption like that, being like, oh, I can't deal with it. Like, okay, tomorrow, like we're going to X, Y, Z. Or, and I think that also like the more you do that, the more easily you're disrupted because you're like, I am like killing myself over here sometimes literally to get into this body shape or size or whatever. And then, and still, oh, I'm still not, and then I see a picture, like say you lose all the weight or whatever, and then you still see it and you're like, oh, that wasn't enough. So I have to double down even more. And I think you get kind of sunk cost bias of being,
I think you're totally right.
Invested in this. And so you just double down even more. And so it's really, truly insidious and awful.
It is. Yeah, you're totally right. It's that discouragement that amplifies it all, where you're investing so heavily in making sure your body looks a certain way because you have been promised by everyone and everything in your life that looking better will make your life better. And when your life isn't better, and when you do see that now your skin is saggier and you look older and whatever else happens when you lose weight, because that's the goal for so many people, then, and it doesn't really fix your problems, that discouragement is magnified.
Oh, it's like soul crushing.
You're disrupted again.
Because it's so much work and it like takes all of your focus. And you were also talking about hiding. And I can think of like all the times dieting that I like said no to like social engagements because like that didn't fit my macros or that didn't fit my calories or whatever. And I think back on that now, it just makes me it makes me sad for my past self.
Me too. Some people don't date because they aren't able to stay on their diet if they have to meet at a bar to get drinks or, eat bar food or whatever it is. And so they'd rather be alone and we think that we're trying to reach these goals that are healthy and they'll make our lives better when in reality, they just isolate us and they keep us on these cycles of just totally losing cycles where we're back in that self-objectifying, uncomfortable comfort zone forever. We ultimately do not win in this cycle.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, call it out. Like get on the rooftops, scream it.
Yes, please. I try.
Okay, and then the third response that you talk about in your book in reaction to these disruptions is body image resilience. So I would love to talk about that because that is a major theme of your work. So I'd like to talk about, can you tell us more about what body image resilience is? And then also specifically how it's different from so many terms now on the internet: body neutrality, body acceptance, body positivity, body love. Just tell us a little bit more about body image resilience.
So the origin of this body image resilience idea came because in our dissertation research, we found that it was easy to explain why women self-objectified and what kept them in that cycle. It was easy to predict it. And like I described, is a cycle where you go from bad to trying to fix it, to not really fixing it, back to bad again. And that was this self-objectification cycle. You could predict it, you could explain it, but there wasn't a way out of it. And so there's this gap in the research. And that left an opening to say, okay, we know that in this objectifying environment, people are uncomfortable with their bodies, they're going to get disrupted, and they're going to take one of these two paths that are keeping them on this uncomfortable cycle. There's got to be a better way. And the way out is a resilience approach. The way out is to say, okay, to incorporate these disruptions into a model, a theoretical model that says disruptions are going to happen. How do we use them for our benefit? That turns a disruption into a pivot point. It turns it into an opportunity where if you consciously approach a disruption, you recognize when it's happening and what kinds of feelings that stirs up for you that make you self-objectify, that make you want to hide and fix and sink deeper into shame. When you recognize in the moment that that is happening, you immediately have an opportunity to change your reaction. And the change leads to rising with resilience instead of sinking into shame and clinging to the comfort zone. You drop that shame and you consciously make a choice to say, okay, I'm going to try a new way. The other ways haven't really been working for me. And even though it feels natural and comfortable to go back on that cycle again, it doesn't ultimately fix me or make my life any better. And so you make some sacrifices. You don't turn toward the dieting. You turn back to your body as your home. And so our whole book is about how to find your own resources for resilience. And so we talk about it as not only a skill set that you use in the moment to work through a disruption in a healthy and empowering way. You use your resilience resources in that moment that you're uncomfortable, but it's also like this muscle that you flex that every time you face a disruption and you choose to do so in a different, more empowering way, it gets easier every single time. And so you build your body image resilience over time. And that's a whole different framework than the other ones that you brought up, like body positivity and body neutrality and body acceptance, all amazing things. And honestly, all of them a stepping stone to a better thing. Body positivity was really a reaction, and an important and necessary reaction to an environment that said some bodies are good and some bodies are bad. Some bodies are embarrassing and shouldn't be seen and haven't been seen in mainstream media. And so the reaction online, especially through social media, was for women to say, well, my body is beautiful and I'm going to show you that. And I'm going to highlight these other bodies that I believe are sexy and beautiful and look great. And that will help normalize these bodies that come in a wide range of sizes and shapes and colors and everything else. And all of that is good. Normalizing all different types of bodies is a really important step in the process. But when you look at it from our research perspective, where we're really looking at objectification, you can see that in that framework, self-objectification is still at the foundation. It's still women looking at bodies and thinking, does my body look like that? Does my body look good? If she looks good, then maybe I look good too. And we're still keeping that focus on how we look. Unfortunately, it recenters beauty. Even while it's expanding the definition of it, it's still kind of recentering the importance of feeling beautiful, of looking beautiful. And so then it's necessary to take another step. And the next step was body neutrality and body acceptance, to say that my body isn't just good for what it looks like. It doesn't even necessarily need to be beautiful for me to be acceptable and happy and worthy of love. And it kind of shifted the focus more toward function over form, which can be a good thing and can be a really tricky, difficult thing, especially for people who have disabilities, who are chronically ill or have injuries. Your body isn't as good as how it functions. Your body is good because it's your body and you were born into this body. And so the framework shift that we've taken is to say, it's not, body image resilience is not like a landing point you get to. It is a continuous process, a choice that you make to face a disruption where you are uncomfortable, where you are objectified or objectifying yourself through self-objectification. And you make the choice to say, my body is an instrument for my use, my experience, my benefit. I am more than just how my body appears. And I will face this disruption right now in a way that honors that and helps me reconnect with myself instead of turning against myself.
Yes. I love that. And I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit, which is something that I don't usually do, but this ties into something that I wanted to speak to you about, which was race, ethnicity, and body image.
Yeah.
So, and I was speaking with a friend of mine about this, about the difference kind of between body neutrality, body love, body acceptance, body resilience. Like, and for me personally, as a person of color, it has actually felt very important to claim that space, to be like, so I'm like not thin, I'm over 40, I'm Black, I'm like all these things where the, you know, mainstream beauty standards are like, get out of here, like we don't want to hear from you, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, it's felt very important in this space to be like, no, I am beautiful and I am taking up space and I give that to myself, and not like even compared to you or anyone else. Like I am just declaring this for myself. And so I do feel like when I hear people talk about body neutrality or even body image resilience, which I obviously am on board with and think is very important, I do feel a little space in there as a person of color of like, I want space to stand in this, to say that like, no, like if you can be trans, you can be a person of color, you can be disabled, you can be whatever, and still take up space, be beautiful, proclaim like beautiful inside and out. Like where does that fit in with the model of body image resilience?
I totally honor that. I think there's definitely room for all that you've described in the body image resilience model and in all of my beliefs about this body image stuff. Because we grow up in this culture that only values certain bodies and faces as beautiful, it is important for some people to be able to say, but I believe I am beautiful and I'm good enough as I am. That is an important part of it. And that's why I say it's a stepping stone. I don't necessarily think it's a stepping stone for everybody, but I do think for women of color, for people who are trans, whose gender identity hasn't reflected what they've wanted it to their entire lives, there's this important pivot point where you do have to accept yourself and say, I honor my whole body, not just as an instrument, but for all facets of it. And one of the facets of having a body is having a body that is visible to other people. Like we appear it, and other people are going to perceive our bodies differently than even we perceive them. And so what the point that you've made, I think, is very important, where it's you making that claim, that declaration of value and beauty for yourself. You're not waiting for other people to say, my body looks good, so my body looks good too. It's not a comparison thing. It's like, it's an innate thing. It's something you've taken for yourself. And I think we all should do that, because you're creating your own definition of what it means to be beautiful. You're not saying, I've expanded the definition far enough that I can finally fit in it. You're saying it doesn't matter what the definition is. I choose it for myself.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. And if somebody, maybe it's because like I have an art history background or whatever, like I am very interested in beauty as a concept. Like beauty is important to me, like in my house, and like it's full of plants and like artwork. And like, so beauty is just a concept that I identify with. So sometimes I feel a little bit uncomfortable about this. Sometimes I feel like people have this idea that beauty should just be jettisoned. And so that's, I don't know. I always like to hear people's opinion on that.
No, I think that's a really important part of the conversation, because I like beauty too. I'm into aesthetics, not like, especially for my household, like you described. I like bright colors. I like beautiful prints and patterns. Everyone is drawn to different aesthetics. And I think it's really important to honor that and value that and recognize that when we are looking at our own bodies and faces, we're all going to have different preferences for what that is. And if we can choose whatever type of beauty we want for ourselves and claim that for ourselves, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. Our whole Instagram, our nonprofit is named Beauty Redefined. Like beauty has been an essential part of this whole conversation, because that's where it started. It's always been about what was beautiful, who was beautiful, whether we can redefine it and expand it in ways that will fit more people. And ultimately, how do we value it and hold it of a different level of importance in our lives? You know, for too many of us, it's held way too much importance.
Totally. Yeah. And I guess for me, the concept is more, it's like akin to self-worth. Like I think everybody is deserving of love and care and respect simply for existing, not because of what your productivity, not because of what you look like, not because of the color of your skin. And I see beauty somewhat similarly, like we're all beautiful, like inner beauty, outer beauty. So anyway, I just like to touch on this topic.
That's great. I want everyone to feel beautiful. I really do. Like we always say that a lot of people approach this subject by saying, all bodies are beautiful. You're beautiful just the way you are. And the reason that Lexi and I have tried to take that conversation further to the more than a body place is because too often the conversation stops there. And it is this really good starting point. But when you leave it there, it's tricky because you can still find your worth in this beauty thing, and the beauty thing is what gets manipulated by our culture. And so if you don't have a really firm grasp for yourself as a grown adult woman, then it's easy for that to get co-opted by, other forces.
And it's okay. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I would love to talk about this. Let's segue a little bit into talking about, you have a chapter in the book about critiquing and creating your media environment. And this chapter, just like, there are some things in here that just blew my mind. So this one is so challenging for so many of us, because like you said, we're in this sea of self-objectification and being constantly bombarded like 24/7 with messages, social media, movies, magazines, advertising, conversations in a dressing room, at the mall, whatever, to this messaging. And sometimes it just feels like a tsunami of forces that it's useless to resist, kind of. But I love that you call it in your book how cohesive this messaging is and how it's all in the service of profit. And you write about how a character on the series Dietland calls this the dissatisfaction industrial complex. And I thought, oh, that's so brilliant, because that's exactly what it is. And I couldn't find it when I went back through the book, but I think you talked about a $63 billion beauty industry.
Yep.
I know it's like a $73 billion diet in fitness industry, weight loss industry, aimed primarily at women. And I would love to read a little quote here, if you don't mind. In order to see the power these objectifying messages have in our lives, it's vital to understand the profit-driven nature of media, including social media. Media makers, advertisers, and beauty, fashion, fitness, and diet industry leaders know a secret many of us have not yet figured out. The purchasing power of women is unrivaled. Women control more than $20 trillion in worldwide spending, and 75% of women are the primary spenders in their household. And so when you are hit with numbers like that, you have to be like, just for me, like this idea of how cohesive it is. And you write about how the beauty industry like puts out this cohesive message. So of making you feel bad, you have all these flaws. Flaws are constantly being invented. Like there's always something new to work on. Like you write in the book how lately now it's like eyebrows and eyelashes. So now there's all these like $100 serums for your eyelashes and your eyebrows.
Yep.
It's constantly ever expanding notion of always something to work on, and how truly profit driven it is. And when I hear that, it just makes me like enraged. It makes me so angry. But I think it's so important to call out the root of a lot of this messaging, because I think people have the sense, or I've had the sense in the past, that it's kind of like just incidental and that's just the way it is. But like, no, this is big business.
Oh, yeah. I think it's so important to recognize that women are targeted for lots of different reasons. And one of the really big ones is for money. It's for our spending power. When we control the dollars in our households, and when we do have extra spending money, or at least, are flexible with our budgets, then, and even when we're not, we still spend money on makeup. It's so interesting. Like even during the pandemic, people lost their jobs. Incomes were fluctuating all over the place. Botox and lipstick sales, like those particular two things, still skyrocketed.
Wow.
So people are still turning to beauty work and beauty products to try to control their happiness level and, other aspects of their lives.
Well, and I can imagine like this was like a global moment of like being confronted with ourselves, like with the rise of Zoom, like we're all on online calls, like we never have been. So you have to like look at your own freaking face like all day, every day on your calls. So I imagine that contributes to this self-objectifying.
Yes, it definitely has. And plastic surgeons say that too. They said they've seen a huge rise in, I can't remember what they called it. It's like a Zoom surgery or something like that. It's a direct result of people seeing their faces on Zoom and then wanting it to look more like the filters in their social media.
Oh,
you put your face through a filter in an Instagram story, and all of a sudden you think your face needs to look like that.
We could spend a whole hour just talking about filters. And
we could. They are doing some damage. They seem so innocent and fun, but they are not just creating ideals, but they're like replicating ideals that have been there forever and then making it look attainable for your own face and then normalizing it.
Well, yeah. And then when you start to use a lot of filters and then you see your own face, you're like, oh, that's not right. Like,
exactly. Like, wait, my face has texture and my eyes are smaller than I thought. Like, what? What is this?
I don't have like a giant forehead and a teeny tiny little pointy nose. Yes,
exactly. I'm not just eyes and lips. What?
So I would love it if you could talk a little bit, like you have lots of really super valuable ideas and tips for combating this in the book, but I was wondering if you could, I always like to keep these talks like practical as well as theoretical. So if you could provide like 1 or 2 pieces of advice for managing this media, either social media or just like this waters that we're swimming in, like what are some things we can do for making our media environment more healthy?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because a lot of us really like media. I do. I love, reality TV trash. I love the Real Housewives. I love the Bachelorette, all of these things that just totally reinforce unhealthy, unrealistic ideals about faces and bodies. I still like to enjoy those things. And it's possible to still enjoy them while maintaining a really critical perspective on them. And I think that's really the key, is being able to take a critical look. Honestly, one of the first things I recommend for people is that as they're watching TV or scrolling through social media, they need to recognize when, like, stay mindful and conscious of what you're feeling and thinking. When does your self-objectification get sparked? When does that body anxiety come up for you? What are you looking at? What types of things are you seeing? Are you self-comparing in those moments? Are there certain people that you follow or certain shows that trigger that in you more than others? Sometimes we'll dive into those even deeper when those uncomfortable feelings come up, because we think it's just curiosity, and we'll just keep scrolling through our ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend's feed because it's all right, I'm just interested. When really what we're doing is self-comparing, and like in some ways self-harming. It's really hurting our self-worth. And so as you're engaging in all this media stuff, be conscious of how it's making you feel, and take a moment as those feelings come up to see what's happening, take a deep breath, and maybe unfollow or close that app or delete the app for 3 days and see how much you need it when you come back. Really, this media cleanse thing, we call it an intermittent media cleanse because, put it in trendy diet terms that people can relate to. It really will resensitize you to what kinds of things are manipulating your perspective of your own body and reinforcing a lot of that self-objectification. Then when you come back to it, you have an opportunity to be more conscious, more critical of what you're seeing. And then you can curate that social media feed and what you're taking into your life more easily than you could when you're just fully immersed in it all day long and not conscious of it.
And I think even though whatever day it was, like a week or 2 weeks ago, the day that Facebook and Instagram were down, and the overwhelming feeling that I heard from people when it came back up was a sense of relief. So I think that in and of itself is really revelatory of how we feel when we're on there. And I know a lot of people talk about social media cleanse or curating your feeds, but I have to say, for me, that one was a huge game changer. To just like, if I feel even a little bit of a twinge of like comparison, or like, oh, she's so beautiful, or not just she's so beautiful, but like, oh, like I don't look like that, then I'm just like, nope, gotta go. And then I took all of those out. And then on the other hand, the other piece that I found really valuable personally, like just to be a little bit vulnerable, is I did have a sense, I'm doing this work, trying to work on my own body image resilience, like moving into a relationship of peace and self-compassion for my own body, and was expanding the notions of like, what is healthy, what is beautiful, what is desirable. But I did have a certain limit. I was like, okay, people beyond this size are like, okay, certainly that's not healthy, or that's not acceptable. And so I started following a lot of feeds of fat activists and really learned a lot about like health at every size. And just seeing those bodies regularly has really changed, without me doing any additional work, like how I view that. It really has been transformative. So wherever you are on that spectrum, like if right now you only think that the tiniest, thinnest, most curvaceous Kim Kardashian bodies are the ideal, just I feel like expanding who you see on a daily basis really is powerful.
Yes. I always ask people to take inventory of the types of bodies and faces that they're seeing on a regular basis, whether it's in your feed or the types of entertainment that you watch and stream. And if they all tend to look the same and fit into certain sizes, you got to expand that. And with social media, it's entirely possible to expand what we're seeing and normalize it for ourselves. Because there is this unconscious, subtle judgment that is really baked into us, a very fat phobic culture that teaches us to maintain that judgment, even as people who are accepting of our own larger bodies. It's important to diversify what we're seeing because, like you said, it's kind of in the background and it will naturally help to expand your perception and normalize normal bodies.
Yeah. So I think it's great because like social media gets a lot of criticism for good reason, right? But also like, I think if you're mindful with it, it can also really be a tool for like broadening your world perspective and how you feel about yourself, just with that added intention. And Okay. I want to respect time, so I want to go to questions. But before we do, the last thing I would like to talk about, and kind of what you mentioned towards the end of your book, is one of the powerful tools for helping develop body image resilience, a healthier, more compassionate relationship with your body is self-compassion. And I love this one because in all the research that I'm doing for this talk and for Lioness, the community and the podcast, and just my own personal development, self-compassion just comes up again and again as such a powerful tool for healing a lot of the wounds that have been inflicted on us by patriarchy, by racism, by sexism, by capitalism.
Yep.
So I was wondering if you could talk just briefly about how you view self-compassion in your work or personal.
Self-compassion, yeah, in both my work and personal life, self-compassion is absolutely crucial. Kristin Neff is really the pioneer of this space. Her book on self-compassion is absolutely incredible. She has a workbook too. Self-compassion is this piece of the puzzle that helps to alleviate some of the shame we feel just for being human, because it brings back our own humanity. And I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle, especially when we're talking about self-comparison, because we dehumanize ourselves when we are comparing ourselves to other people, but we also dehumanize the other people that we're looking at. We turn ourselves and them into objects to be looked at and compared and judged. And when you put back the self-compassion into it, you say to yourself, I'm a human. I have flaws. I make good choices and bad choices. I can hold that pain that I feel in balance with all of the good things that I feel and the happiness I experience. And you can look at that other person that you may be tempted to judge or compare yourself to, and you can say out loud or just in your mind, she is a person, she is a human, she has flaws, she is struggling with things, she has happiness and joy, and she is in the same objectifying environment that I'm in. And when you extend compassion to other people to allow them to make choices that are different, maybe from choices that you would make, then it takes you out of competition with them. And it puts you back into this mindset of we're all doing our best. And it's difficult to live in this environment that we live in. The waters of objectification are not a fun place to be. So we have to extend that grace not only to ourselves, but also to other people.
Yes, so powerful. I love it. Do you have time for just a few questions?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's get into the questions. So Kelsey says, what can I say in reply to a friend or family sharing good news? Oh, this is a good one. Sharing good news about weight loss or change in size. My friend told me the other day she's now wearing a size X, I'm not going to say, and was so excited. I don't want to be preachy about this topic because I know one needs to be ready to tackle changing body image, but I also don't want to reinforce encouraging the idea that smaller is better. Such a good question.
Yeah, very good, real life, realistic question. So I think the thing to keep in mind when approaching something like this is that this person will probably gain the weight back. Within 1 to 5 years, 98% of people will gain that weight back. And so we have to approach this conversation again from a very compassionate perspective, because this person is going to get a lot of positive feedback, a lot of compliments for their smaller body. And it sounds like she's excited about it. And she has every right to be excited. We don't know how she lost the weight. We don't know what methods she took to do it. She may have used some methods that are harmful to her health. She may not have. She may have, done things that she feels really great about. And all of that's good. And so we can look at that with kindness and compassion, while at the same time, not necessarily praising her for having a smaller body. We can say, hey, I'm glad you're feeling so good. Tell me more about what you've been up to. And maybe she will have the space to open up and tell you that she loves the workout routine, that maybe she was sedentary for many years and now she's, up and moving, and it's really changed the way she relates to her body. Maybe she's dealt with disordered eating and she's sought treatment, and now she's at a more natural weight for her body after binging for years or something like that. Let's have space and compassion for all of the different things that could go into it without praising something that could be potentially in the disordered eating realm, or in even a realm that hurts her health in other ways. So I approach those conversations with being happy for somebody and phrasing them more as questions instead of, you look so amazing. I'll say, I'm just so glad to see you're happy. Tell me more about what's going on in your life. Give them space to open up if they want to. And also, if you're comfortable with it, you can explicitly say to somebody, I love you at any size. I've always thought that you were wonderful regardless of how you looked or what your body looked like. So I just want you to know that it just simply doesn't matter to me. I love you for who you are.
Oh,
And sometimes that gives someone the space to be whoever they are.
such a good answer. I love that one. And also just even like at a very, like you didn't mention this, but like at a very surface level, like avoiding the temptation to just be like, oh my God, you look amazing.
Yep.
It's such a female form of bonding.
It is. Yeah. It's probably the most common comment that people make when you see somebody. It's the most common comment you see online under someone's Instagram photos. It's like, oh my gosh, you're so skinny. Tell me about how you lost that weight or how you got back into those jeans.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question from Ellen. Ellen says, would you recommend this book for men to either help them see women differently or see themselves different? Oh, good question.
That is a good question. This book was written definitely for women and girls in mind, but the research applies to anyone. It really does. So I think as women, a lot of times, especially growing up, we got used to having to change the pronouns in books and in other types of literature to make it applicable to us. We were reading about men, male protagonists, he, him pronouns everywhere. And so we got used to doing some mental gymnastics to make sure it worked for us. I think men need to learn to do that too. It's much more rare for a man to read a book and have to put himself into the standpoint or the position to be able to relate to it. But yeah, this book is relatable for men, especially for men who want to be allies in this and to stop objectifying the women in their lives, or at least provide a safe space for, daughters and sisters and coworkers and friends and everybody else to be able to be someone who's not perpetuating objectification and diet culture and all the other stuff. So I would recommend it, especially if they want to read it alongside female partners and friends and all of that. Other women to talk to about it, I think would be a great resource.
Yeah, totally. And as the beauty industry like runs out of like flaws that they can make up for women, they're doubling down for men.
They are. Yeah.
So like, that is only, I imagine that men grappling with these body images that have traditionally been the domain of women is only going to rise.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially for young boys and men, they're dealing with, so muscularity, of course, is the big thing for men, and the fitness industry pushes that harder than anything. So male bodies need to be bigger and harder, and women's bodies need to be smaller and also harder.
Okay, last question from Cher. Because I was fat when I was young, I stayed away from physical activities as a teen and decided that if I couldn't be pretty, I could be more successful by being smart. I went into school and jobs, adopting male style behavior, dress, etc., to feel like I had value, even if I wasn't thin. This all started with being fat and invisible, and I wonder if you found anything in your research that indicates how we can move to self-acceptance from being disconnected from our bodies in this way.
Yeah, I think that is a really great and relatable point. I think a lot of fat people, especially when they're fat when they're young, are overachievers and perfectionists in other areas of their lives. I had a doctor actually say to me once when I was like in my late teen years, he said, you're incredibly smart. It sounds like you excel at everything you do. And so why would you think that you're doing anything wrong with your body? You're not a failure. You're not someone who has, made bad choices. This is just how your body is.
Ooh, I thought that was going to go the other way. I thought you were going to say,
I know, and it could have. And I think for too many people, it has gone the other way. But no, he was actually taking a more compassionate approach to say, you're being too hard on yourself. I gained a lot of weight after puberty and, was just very concerned that I was doing something wrong. But no, he reflected this approach of like, why would you think that if you're really good at a lot of other things in your life that you would just happen to be really bad at this one thing? You're not. It's just how it is. And so I would say to somebody who has, learned to overcompensate in so many ways to try to make up for what they feel they lack in their appearance, taking a more embodied approach to their body image, this more than a body approach, I think is going to be something that's really helpful, because you're not successful and good and worthy in spite of your body. You're successful and good and worthy because of this wonderful dynamic body that you were born in, that you've grown up in. You've spent every second of your life in this body. And regardless of how it looks, it's yours, it's your home. And so when we practice building our body image resilience, and when we go through disruptions and the shame comes up, and we face it over and over again by returning home to our bodies, by reconnecting with ourselves, our little selves that we grew up with, that before that shame came in. There's a part in the book where I write a letter to my little inner Lindsay to try to heal from some of the shame that I experienced. And as we do that and we continue to practice using our bodies as instruments instead of looking at them as ornaments, I think we can embrace our whole embodied selves and reunite, come back to that beach where we were when we were little, and just be at home. I think it's totally possible for anyone.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And I wish that to everyone, on everyone listening, on everyone, like anyone who's been impacted by this, like these negative body image, is just to come home to yourself. Like, I think it's so powerful. It's so healing. It's so important, which is why I'm so grateful that we have resources like this, that we have people like you and Lexi doing the work that you do. I think it is truly transformative. I think it is really, really important. So I just want to thank you for doing everything that you do. It's very meaningful. It's been personally very like impactful to me. And I think, and I can see like it resonating out in the world through Instagram and people that I share this book with and talks like this. I hope that it just like grows and grows and more people like understand that it is possible to like heal your relationship with your body and come back to yourself. So thank you.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much, Elia, and for hosting this. And your words really mean a lot. So I appreciate you being an advocate, really being out there and just being fully embodied in your own body as your home. That's activism too.
Well, thank you. Love it. Before we go, I want to make sure people, I know Stesha is popping stuff into the comments, but tell everyone where they can find you online.
Yeah, so the book More Than a Body is available literally anywhere. Anywhere books are sold. It's in hardcover. The paperback will be coming out at the end of the year, so a couple months in December. That'll be fun.
Christmas gifts.
Yeah, Christmas gifts for sure. New year, new you, combat all of that messaging with a better book.
Yes.
So it's also available on Audible or any audio and ebook. We're on Instagram at beauty_redefined. Our website is morethanabody.org. We have an online course, and some other resources and things there. That's probably the big ones.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Stesha. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Having some trouble with my video because I was just so into what you all were talking about. But thank you both so much. This is such an important conversation, and I'm so grateful to both of you for being here tonight. And I was like filled with rage when you were talking about that, and filled with hope and optimism at the end. So, you know, that's great. I'm just, yeah, it's wonderful. So as Lindsay and Elia mentioned, you can find More Than a Body at our partner bookseller, Third Place Books, and we popped a link to that in the chat. And of course, we also have More Than a Body at the library, of course, as well at SPL. And you can also find all of those resources that they were discussing at morethanabody.org, which we also popped into the chat there for you. And I just wanted to let folks know there are 3 more events scheduled in this series. The next event is coming up on Thursday, October 28th with Amanda Machado, and she and Elia will talk about BIPOC access to travel and the outdoors, which I think will be a really interesting conversation. And you can find out more information about Elia's entire series at a link in the chat, which I posted a while ago, but you know what? I'm gonna do it again right now, because I think everybody should come to it. And as I mentioned, we're interested in hearing from you. So we'll post a link to a program survey in the chat, and I would really appreciate it if you took a minute after the event to take a second and let us know what you think. Share your thoughts. And finally, I'm just so grateful to everybody who made today's program possible. Thank you to our program partners at Third Place Books, and thanks to our sponsors, the Gary and Connie Kunis Foundation, the Seattle Times, and the Seattle Public Library Foundation. And of course, thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Good night, Elia. Good night, Lindsay.
Bye. Thank you so much, Stesha.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.